you don't tell love, you feel love. But how am I to know if you never say it?
I love you, Edward. So I want to and not. And I never thought in a million years you'd stop loving me.
We thought we were like each other. I didn't know it. I did my best to be who she wanted me to be, but I didn't know who I was myself.
All right, so I'm gonna start off by telling y'all this story is only gonna get more heart-wrenching, right? But the funny part about the whole thing is, like, I'm watching damn near the same parts of the same shit, seeing it from other people's angles, and actually getting what the movie is about. Because this shit is crazy to think, because this happened. It may not be based on a true story, or it may be based on a true story, but this can definitely happen.
As things stand, if your husband died, you'd get the house, your joint savings, and a full widow's pension.
If we get a divorce, I get less.
Yes.
So it would be better for me if you were dead.
But I'm not.
It would be better in every way.
As things stand.
You hear her, right? This is the same movie. This is the same movie. You hear her, right? You hear the disdain. It would be better if you were dead. That's your husband, ma'am. But this is a movie, so let me not read too far into it. We gonna be finished soon. Let's see about this one and then that one.
Grace asked to sign the divorce papers in person with her husband. She's the same as always. She was naive enough to think that a meeting would bring her husband back. Edward, of course, knew it was a trap. So when his son told him his mother wanted to see him, Edward refused. The son returned home immediately. While he was gone, his mother got a pet dog. She was in a better mood than before. But when his mom told him the dog's name, Jamie's heart was in a panic because mom had named the dog Edward. This proved that she still hadn't got over his father. In the afternoon, Grace walked into the lawyer's office with the dog on purpose. Edward didn't care about his wife's humiliation. As long as he signed the divorce papers, he didn't mind doing a little barking. Things didn't go as smoothly as they should have. Despite Edward's willingness to transfer his entire estate into his wife's name, Grace refused to agree to the...
Look, you heard him? Everything was yours. But because you feel like the person is yours, mind you, if guys do this shit, it'd be out of hand. You're too controlling. Yeah, I don't know. I'm lost.
To the divorce. She was adamant that she'd rather be a widow for the rest of her life than give up her husband to someone else. It was an awkward situation, but Grace didn't care. She said it was her husband's failure to leave that made her angry. Edward knew there was no point in going on, so he left. Grace immediately stopped arguing. She tried to win her husband back by showing weakness. I love you, Edward. Whether I want to admit it or not. I never thought I'd see the day when you didn't love me. Edward didn't.
All fake. Definitely all fake. Ain't no questions about it, all fake.
Want to hurt his wife, but he didn't want to be hurt by her either. As she watched her husband's determination to leave, Grace's heart went cold. She knew she'd lost her husband for real. A few days later, Jamie came home to visit his mom, but the house was empty. After looking around anxiously, he finally saw his mom at the edge of the cliff, worried that she would not be able to survive. Jamie ran over to her. When he heard his son's call, Grace turned around. The weather-beaten face was a little more haggard. Jamie hugs his mom tightly in heartache. Grace confessed that she had bad thoughts, even though her husband had left her. But she saw him every day in every corner of the house. It was too painful to think about him. Sometimes she wanted to die. She didn't expect her son's response. If life hurts you too much and you want to end it, I won't stop you, because I love you. All you have to do is tell me. Don't let it come so suddenly. Give me time to say goodbye. I can't ask you to live for me, because we all have our own burdens to bear. But if you insist on living and choose to live with the pain, then I'll know that no matter how hard life gets, I can get through it, because you set an example for me. Hearing those words, Grace suddenly realized that the son she'd raised for over 20 years had grown up. A sense of fulfillment and relief washed away all the unpleasantness. Yes, there's more to life than love.
Is there though? Like, is there? Because for her, she was trying to control the love instead of letting the love be what it is. Love. Like, you can't tell anybody how to love you. You can't show anybody how to love you. You just have to accept the love that they give to you and feel like, or even think like, that's enough. I could be thinking like a man in that retrospect, because women get loved unconditionally. But it even sometimes you would have to have a better character as a person for somebody to love you unconditionally, at least in my head.
The wife became more and more withdrawn and haggard. Every day she sat with a view of the door waiting for her husband to return. Luckily, Jamie followed his father's instructions. He went home to be with his mom on weekends. He found an I love you note in the fridge. Curious, he asked his mom why she did it. Mom said she wanted his dad to come home. Mom looked very sad. In the afternoon, Jamie told his dad about the note. He hoped that the two of them could get back together, but Edward's heart was already dead. He didn't want to taste his wife's oppression anymore, but as compensation, he would leave her everything. After returning from Dad's, Jamie took his mom for a walk on the beach. He told her about Dad's decision to leave the family. Mom didn't accept it. She wanted her husband to tell her himself, not her son, but there was no answer on the phone. Jamie kindly reminded her that Dad had changed his number. Grace wanted to ask her son for the new number, but Jamie promised his dad he'd never give out his new number. But this was a move that offended his mother. He threatened his son to give out his number, or else there would be consequences. The son thought her recent behavior was too extreme. He thought it would be best if she didn't contact his father, but Grace wouldn't admit she had a problem. I'm an adult. I'm not a criminal or a lunatic. I wish I could get in touch with my husband. I think you should go. Go away. Isn't that what you want? You can't help me. Why don't you just go? You're no use to me. You sided with him. You've left me like he did. Even if I'm the only one left, I don't need the pity of a guy who can't stand up for himself. Grace's words were like a fuse. It ignited the son's anger. He complained that his mom had never thought about anyone else's feelings for years. That's why Dad fell in love with another man. As soon as the words left their mouths, they both fell silent. In this war of parents' divorce, Jamie seems to be the biggest victim. This colleague saw that he was distracted, so he sends him a friendly greeting. Jamie smiled in embarrassment. After work, a female colleague gave Jamie a donut. People who are not in a good mood can become happy by eating high sugar foods. Jamie was recently tortured by his mom. Under the psychological counseling of her colleague, Jamie finally cried out, "It's time to end things." Edward sent his wife divorce papers.
Nah, I keep telling y'all the story gonna get crazier and crazier. Yes, it sounds a little wonky because they said something like husband found another man, but I'm pretty sure they meant another woman and all that. It's just somebody rereading the same thing. But this is the last part, and I'm gonna let y'all go if you stood this long.
She's been testing her husband's obedience for years. If the man doesn't obey, the woman immediately slaps him. The man silently swallows his grievances because he knows that if he continues to argue, his wife would burn the house down. He's been living in this kind of marriage for 29 years. The man is physically and mentally exhausted and can no longer communicate with his wife. Edward was a history teacher. He was a gentle man who never lost his temper with anyone. Even when he caught a student deserting the class, Edward would not reprimand them. Instead, he would ask questions to get the students to refocus on their studies. Such a gentle and kind man, but with a domineering wife at home. Grace's greatest pleasure was in the service she received from her husband when she heard Edward putting away his cup of tea.
See that right there? I knew I should have played this earlier, but I'm starting to play stuff like this later on in my video to see if people will watch the full video. You feel me? But this part right here, do not turn your person into your happiness or your person into your satisfaction. That's absolutely something you should not do. 100%. Because at the end of the day, that person is supposed to add to everything that you already have, not do more for you that you already didn't do for yourself.
She asked, "Did you make my tea?" A woman has hands and feet, but she wanted her husband to make tea for her after a long day's work. In fact, she didn't really want to drink tea. Rather, she was using this little tactic to test her husband's obedience. What's worse, Edward was not the only victim in the family. That day, her son Jamie was invited home. He had to cheer himself up before entering the house. Grace hugged her son, whom she hadn't seen in a long time. There should have been a sense of reunion when they got home, but Jamie couldn't be happy. There was a stifling, depressing smell in the house that he had grown up with, and the people who made it happen didn't even know it. It's because of a mother who was so strong and so scary. When Jamie graduated from college, he decided to go to a big city far away from home, and he was afraid to come home. After dinner, Edward cleaned up alone, while his wife sat and played a candle lighting game and pressed her husband. "We're having fun, aren't we?" Edward gave a casual answer and went back to his daily chores. But his wife was not pleased with his attitude and ordered Edward to put down what he was doing and talk to him at once. To control her husband, Grace made him say "I love you" into her eyes. The husband saw no point in being forced to say "I love you," so he refused. But after a loud slap, Grace shouted at her husband, as if she was standing across from a child who had made a mistake, who needed to be scolded to make things right. Edward
So all of y'all who watching this, what y'all got to say? Because this is a movie. Why does it sound so real? Why does it sound like I can pick up a book or see this in a daily action between humans? And somebody wrote this. Like I said earlier, it may not be based on a true story, but it could be.
took it in his stride, even when he was slapped by his wife. But this attitude made Grace even more upset. Grace wanted to argue, but her husband wouldn't give her a chance. She had nowhere else to vent her anger. She took her anger to the innocent table. A sudden noise startled her son. When he saw the mess in the kitchen, he realized what had happened. It had happened many times before. The son quietly helped his mom to clean up the mess, and still the mother went on and on. "I want a real marriage. What is he afraid of? Why does he always stay away from me? The son advised Mom not to push Dad too hard, or the marriage would surely fall apart. But Grace...
Why he did that? Because you think the marriage is meant for you and nobody else. Jiddly. And a lot of women kind of think like this. I'm sorry to say, but y'all are. It's like the relationship is my relationship. It's like, no, really. It's the guy's relationship, because you wouldn't have a relationship without him. You'll be single. Yes, he wouldn't have a relationship without you, but at the end of the day, if we're getting into a relationship, it's still up to the guy to ask. Even if you pressure him into asking you that thing, it's still up to him to ask. So technically the relationship is yours, but that's being too literal in the sense. But at the end of the day, I'm not wrong that being in a relationship is not solely for you. It's for both of y'all. So if y'all both not happy and you're the only one looking for happiness, that's a bad cut for a person to try to sit there and perform to make sure that you always feel that they did something that is liking towards you instead of living and being the person for you. Don't let that go over your head.